The board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now being called to order. Today's in-person meeting is being held virtually via teleconference with the proceedings live streamed and from the Port Authority website. On November 9th, the committees on audit and finance met in executive session. On November 14th, the committees on capital planning, execution, and asset management met in executive. The reports will be filed with the official minutes of today's board meeting. The commissioners also met in an executive earlier today to discuss matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals and matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real property where disclosure would affect the value thereof or the public interest. So we're going to deviate from our agenda just for a moment. Our executive director has some exciting news that literally just came hot off the presses. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What do you say?
Yes, this is a news break. So first of all, I want to just to put this in context, I want to recall to everybody that on Tuesday of this week, an extraordinary new Terminal A had its ribbon cutting in New Jersey, led by Governor Murphy. Extraordinary facility, 21st century facility. 2 or 3 times larger than what had existed before, setting the standard, in my view, for the 21st century state-of-the-art transportation facilities that it is the agenda of the Port Authority to bring to the region. Today, I'm pleased to be able to take note of the fact that Governor Hochul issued a press release just literally moments ago announcing that the Port Authority and 3 private partners, I'll come to that a little bit more in a minute, reached financial close on a new Terminal 6 at JFK Airport. This too will be a state-of-the-art, truly extraordinary facility. And at all 3 airports, the Port Authority is committed to complete 21st century quality, state-of-the-art airports for the region. In terms of today's announcement, this has been a long and difficult road. This Terminal 6, along with 3 other projects at Kennedy, was ready to go, completely negotiated, virtually groundbreaking scheduled in April of 2020, and COVID came along. COVID derailed 3 of the 4 construction projects at Kennedy, and most particularly derailed the Terminal 6 project. So since that time, 2.5 years ago, if I'm doing the arithmetic right, we have been hard at work with our private partners to put this deal back together, working with them. They have worked very hard to put their financing together. These public-private partnerships require the private partner to provide the full amount of the construction spending. And that in turn requires them to put in place their financing. So this was truly a joint effort with Vantage Airport Group, with AIII, which is our 30% minority partner, and with RXR as our private partners to reassemble this deal, for them to reassemble their financing. With all of that put back in place, today was the moment of financial close with binding commitments, but people may be used to hearing public agencies make announcements about what they intend to do with projects of this scale. This will be a $4.2 billion terminal. But those projects never materialize. But Mr. Chairman and members of the board, at this point, the financing for this deal is fully in hand. The private partners are fully committed, and the Port Authority is fully committed. This terminal has final environmental approval in hand from the Federal Aviation Administration. This will be a 1.2 million square foot terminal, 10 gates. The legal obligations and the dimensions of the private partners' commitments are spelled out in the lease. The lease was approved in all material respects by the Port Authority in August of 2021. As I said, it will be a state-of-the-art facility with best-in-class security, with best-in-class check-in capabilities, with iconic concessions, with what has become a signature of Port Authority airports, public art, which will give arriving and departing passengers a true sense of place. This will be built adjacent to JetBlue's Terminal 5. First phase will be on the site of the old Terminal 6. It's a vacant lot, essentially. It's with aircraft parking right now, so the construction will start there. And ultimately, Terminal 7 will be torn down, which is an old, outdated terminal, and Terminal 6 will then build Phase 2 on that site. It will be a major international terminal on the north side of JFK Airport. Now, this terminal deal, however, from the Port Authority's point of view, has an added significance, which is that it represents the falling into place of the final piece of the entire JFK transformation. So as originally conceived, the redevelopment plan for JFK Airport had 4 new terminal renovations. Terminal 1, which reached financial close and started construction earlier this year. Terminal 4, which is an expansion and renovation by a combination of Delta Airlines and JFK IAT. Terminal 8, which is American Airlines terminal, a $400 million renovation and expansion where British Airways actually at the end of this month will move into that terminal, and now Terminal 6. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, this represents the full funding, the full commitment, and the ability to execute on what was the full original vision for the transformation of John F. Kennedy Airport.
So, Rick, you're fond of saying every once in a while, this is a big deal. It's a huge, huge deal. Think about where it went and where it laid stagnant and dormant for a number of years. And as almost symbolically coming out of COVID, emerging out of COVID, on the heels you talked about Terminal A and we'll talk about that later on, the groundbreaking. This is an exceptional project, and to pull it together with your leadership and the senior staff been working on this for more than 3 years after it was, quote, done, is just hats off. And I don't think the port has focused more, labored more, sweat more, was more in doubt about pulling off a project. But under your solid leadership, it's been done, Rick. Congratulations. Job well done to you and senior staff.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, the leadership in terms of the staff work on this project to get it across the finish line. Derek Utter, our Chief Development Officer, Huntley Lawrence, our Chief Operating Officer, Jim Heitman, Libby McCarthy, Chief Financial Officer, Michael Farbiarch, and his deputy, Amy Fisher. The list would take too much time to go through everybody, but it has truly been an extraordinary team effort.
You know, we just had an interesting conversation inside in the executive, and we were talking about projects on both sides of the Hudson. And for the last 5 years, we've talked about one agency, one board, speaking with one voice. And we've found ourselves all voting unanimously on votes that impacted both states of great import. And Commissioner Horowitz, you said it best, and I want you to say it again about how the connectivity and interconnectivity of LaGuardia and JFK and Newark, how they're so tied. I don't think I can say it better than you said it, so maybe you can kind of hit that. Theme again?
Not sure I remember exactly what I said, but the point is that everything is interconnected. I mean, we're talking specifically about the connection between Lower Manhattan and Newark Airport and how you can't distinguish between a river separating two jurisdictions when in fact people in Lower Manhattan rely on transportation that we provide to go to New Jersey. And you have to look at everything holistically. And that's how the board has looked at each of these individual projects, whether it's LaGuardia or Kennedy or Newark or whatever else we're doing. They can't be distinguished by virtue of the fact that one resides in one state as opposed to the other.
You said it almost verbatim, by the way. Vice Chair? Vice Chair?
I second that emotion.
Anybody else wish to be heard on this extraordinary announcement? Job well done and more to come. But thank you very much, Rick. At this time, we're going to talk about something that I think I'm on. Am I on? I don't think that we as an agency celebrate our greatest resource enough. We invest in a lot. We talk a lot about whether it be LaGuardia or JFK or the port or PATH or the bridges or the tunnels. We invest a lot, but I think what we need to invest more in is the greatest asset we have, which is the people of the Port Authority, the employees in particular. So a few months ago, I just started talking with senior staff, and I said, we need to do something to recognize the folks who have said to the Port Authority, this is going to be my career. Now, I know it's kind of, it's not really in vogue for this next generation. I would put my kids in that group. Like to work 30 and 40 years at one agency and to work as a career professional, I think it's the most extraordinary thing you can do when you can work and have a career, a distinguished career with a place like the Port Authority that does groundbreaking things, breathtaking things every single day. We talked about the accomplishments of 2022 and the projections of 2023, and none of that would happen unless we had each of the employees led by the seniors, the people who've been here for 2, 3, 4 decades, and we want to salute them and honor them, and we want to encourage them to stay. We need them here to realize the true greatness of the Port Authority. So what I suggested in consult with folks, I really wanted to have an opportunity to call on the individuals, and I think as a marker to start, there's people who've served 40 years. It's extraordinary, and we want you to stay. But more importantly, we want to salute you and respect you and say we love you. We want you to be role models for the next generation, and thank you for reshaping this vision thing we have at the Port Authority. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to climb down, stand by the podium, and if I could ask all the commissioners in the ED to stand here, and we're going to call up, I think there's 7 of them that are here, 16 in total, and we're going to take a picture with each of those individuals who have served 40 years or more, and we want them to say, this is a thank you, and we have a token little commemorative glass statue that says thank you on behalf of all your colleagues and all the things that you've done. So if we can just have right across the board. So if I can just have the commissioners come down. Stand behind that red line. Straight line or double line? Straight line. You don't divide New York, New Jersey, straight. First person who has served, Robert Orwell, 57 years for the Port Authority. 57 years for the Port Authority. Robert started as a staff assistant, and he's a current position as the assistant manager of payroll. And Robert Orwell, come on down. Congratulations. Person, Carol Bennett, hired in 1980 as the Associate Accountant, Acting Chief of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Is Carla here? Carla Bonaccia, like Bonacci, hired in 1982 as a junior architect. Now she's Assistant Director of World Trade Center Construction. Carla, congratulations. Job well done. Next one is not here, I don't think. Dante Castro Riccio, 41 years, was hired as a guide, is now a Port Authority in the police department as a police officer. Job well done, Dante. Next individual who's not here but served 40 years, Margaret Demich, started as a clerk typist in 1982 and is currently a senior buyer. Congratulations. Susan Polkowski, is she here? Susan, come on down. 1982 as a junior secretary, serves now as a manager in business services. Is Charles Fausti here, 44 years with the agency. Hired in 1978 as a junior professional assistant. Current, he's the program director of the electronic tolls collection. Thank you, Charles. Next one is Joseph Gerbasso, 42 years, started in 1980 as a structure maintainer. He's now a chief maintenance supervisor at PATH. Joseph, thank you very much. Robert Gerstein, 43 years, started in 1979 as a senior project coordinator and now as a principal systems designer in the technology department. Robert, thank you very much. This next one, individual's here, and we're going to try to keep him here longer than a couple of months, Mark. He started in 1980 as a buildings and grounds attendant, is now a police officer in the airport rescue and firefighter, and we want you to stay, Mark, okay? Come on down, Mark. Next individual, no stranger to any of us, James Keane, 46 years, hired in 1976 as an information agent, now as a general manager of occupational safety. James, congratulations. Next individual, Brendan McCann, 41 years, hired in 1981 as a car cleaner, is now a general maintenance supervisor. Brendan's not here, but I want to thank you, Brendan, for your service. Next one, 45 years, hired in 1977 as a guide, currently serves as a detective lieutenant with the criminal investigations for the Port Authority PD, John Ryan. Thank you very much, John. Stephen Safford, 53 years, hired in 1969 as a trades helper, now working communications on PATH. Stephen, thank you very much for your service. Now, here's one of my favorites. One of the individuals who's been so influential and so impactful in senior staff, and I consider her one of the real pillars at the Port Authority. Lillian Valente, who's our Chief Procurement Officer. Last individual who could not be here, Elila Zdeno, 42 years, hired as a secretary in 1980, currently the manager in engineering and business services. Congratulations, Elila. And that concludes our program. See, and if this were my business, Rick, and I know Rick's going to get faint of hearted, I'd be giving them 40,000 each once they hit 40, the 40th year. Keep up the great work. All righty. Next order of business, we will have a presentation from our Chief Financial Officer, Libby McCarthy, who will discuss the preliminary draft 2023 budget, which will be posted on the Port Authority website for the public comment following today's meeting. Libby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good thing I hadn't heard that last comment before I put this together. So,
Did Rick just text you?
oh, okay.
Wait a minute. 16 times 40, how much is that? We'll find it in the seat cushions here somewhere.
It's in the long term.
Okay, Commissioners, I'm happy today to present to you the proposed 2023 budget. I'm going to just start with a brief overview of the budget, and then we'll walk through the various components. We are proposing a $8.3 billion budget for 2023, comprised of operating expenses, capital spending, and our debt service and deferred expenses. All of these aligning with our mission to keep the region moving. The proposed budget invests in our priorities and our standards while continuing to rebuild our infrastructure. It funds the largest security budget ever of nearly $1 billion, and that's to keep our customers safe and secure, but also to strengthen our cybersecurity posture. It provides nearly $3 billion in capital spending to invest in our 21st century facilities, and I'll speak more of that in a few minutes. It invests $55 million to invest in net zero emissions in a net zero emissions future in accordance with our adopting of the Paris Climate Accords and our climate resiliency goals. And it dedicates over $17 million for new technology exploration, customer experience, and employer of choice initiatives. And finally, it provides nearly $2 billion for operating our facilities with an emphasis on customer experience. This is all accomplished through a responsible and deliberate allocation of the agency's resources in a challenging economic environment. This slide shows the proposed budget sources as well as the uses. And I think it's important here to reflect on the fact that the Port Authority is financially self-sustaining. So it derives its resources from the fees and charges for users of its facilities. It does not get state support or ability to tax, so we are reliant on that revenue stream. And we are still recovering from the ongoing effects of COVID-19 on activity at our facilities. So this budget, you'll see, is reflecting that recovery, and we're moving our way back up in terms of our ability to invest in our capital. The other thing I'll note is that it's a balanced budget. The sources meet the uses, but all of this on the left-hand side is necessary to make that capital investment spending that is so important to our facilities. So let me drill down now on the gross operating revenues and the impacts and the activity and impacts of COVID-19. So As I mentioned, we are still recovering from COVID-19. We did incur a $3 billion loss in revenue for the period, 24-month period, from March of 2020 at the onset of COVID through March of 2022. But what you can see here is we're working our way through that. On the this slide shows the activity levels at our airports and at our marine ports, with aviation on the left and the marine ports on the right. Just to orient you, the yellow dotted line is the 2019 levels. And so you can see for aviation, while they were substantially impacted in 2020, they have been increasing their activity levels, reaching an estimated 91% of 2019 levels in 2022. And importantly, we're now estimating that the airports will actually exceed 2019 levels in 2023. And that's a result of continued recovery in the international travel market, as well as business, and a new market that seems to be emerging in this remote work environment of people who are traveling and then working remotely from different locations. In addition, on the right-hand side of the chart, you can see the port container activity. Port has been above 2019 levels since 2020, with substantially being at record levels both in 2021 and 2022. And what this chart reflects, while it looks like a substantial downturn in terms of the port activity, it's reflecting that there is an estimate of potentially some softening in the economy in 2023, and perhaps a start of the shift of the economy, the regional economy, back towards services and away from goods. Given how we've been performing, that may be a little bit of a conservative estimate, and that's something we're going to continue to monitor. Moving on to our tunnels and bridges and PATH. You can see tunnels and bridges are on the left and PATH ridership is on the right. The tunnels and bridges were very resilient while they had an immediate hit from COVID. Really bounced back quickly up to 95% in 2021. We're right at about 99% of 2019 levels in 2022. And we estimate that to be pretty consistent through 2023. And that, again, that flatness is driven by an assumption of a weakening of the economy, some impacts of the high inflation and perhaps recession, and then also higher gas prices. So we are estimating to be at 121 million vehicles, or 99% of 2019 levels in 2023. And then PATH, which has been slower to recover, like the other mass transit commuter rail systems in the region. We are expecting that to still have growth next year, go from an estimated 52% of 2019 levels to 66 or 54 million passengers. So as I mentioned, it's this activity growth that really is driving our revenue growth. That plus a few other things I'll discuss. But it's what you see here is our overall gross operating budget by the type of revenue source. We are expecting an increase of $467 million or 8% versus the 2022 estimate. And again, that's much of that driven by that recovery from the pre-pandemic levels. In addition to that, we have some new rental sources, much at the airports as we're continuing that redevelopment efforts that Rick was talking about, and we'll talk a little bit more about in the future. We also have the activity at the airports is feeding things like parking revenues, activity-based revenues, concessions, et cetera, that we share in some variable rents. We have cost recoveries that are increasing, estimated to increase in 2023. And then in addition to the PATH passenger growth, which I talked about, we also have a automatic inflation-based adjustment to our tolls and to our air train fares, which I'll talk about just in a second. So as mandated by the board in prior actions in 2008, 2011, and 2019, we have an automatic inflation-based adjustment mechanism for our bridge and tunnel tolls and our air train fares that is triggered when CPI reaches, as measured by CPI, reaches a certain measure. Since September of 2020 through September of this year, CPI has increased 14%. And that is triggering the toll adjustment of $1 and the air train fare adjustment of 25 cents. The table on the right shows you what our current tolls are in the middle column for an auto easy pass and an auto toll by mail rate, and what that rate will be at January of 2023. For context, we've also just provided a comparator to the round trip toll at the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, just for context. And moving on, I'll go on to the operating expense budget. Here you can see what we're proposing. It's a operating expense budget of $3.6 billion. That's an increase of 3.2%, or $112 million, as compared to the 2022 estimate. And it's funding our key priority areas, and I'll talk a little bit about those components in a moment. It's important to look at this, and when viewed over the long term, from 2019 to this proposed budget, there's the compound annual growth rate of this budget is 2.8%, which is in line with our long-term inflation target that we try to manage the budget toward. So it's evidence of the actions that we had to take in 2020 and 2021 as we were working our way through the impacts of COVID, and now as activity is coming back, we're bringing that budgeted spending back in line with that inflation-based growth. This slide shows the components of that operating expense budget, and as I mentioned previously, it does fund that largest ever security budget. That's a 6% growth versus our 2022 estimate. It invests $20 million in net zero and sustainability initiatives in 2022 on the operating side, and dedicates that $17 million I mentioned before on technology and customer experience. And then $2 billion for the ongoing operation of to keep our facilities running. In addition to that core spending, what I like to refer to as same-store sales spending, we also have two other categories of spending in the budget. One is for new and expanded facilities. This is all good news because as we've been adding new facilities to our portfolio, they are larger, expanded, ready for the future growth, and so with that comes some incremental spending. Those facilities include the new Terminal A at Newark Airport, which, as Rick mentioned, had its opening this week. It's ribbon cutting this week. The related public parking facility at Newark, and as well a planned opening of the Central Hall at LaGuardia Airport in 2023. We also have a category of spend that is offset by a specific capital project or by a dedicated revenue source. And these include airport traffic mitigation for the redevelopment efforts, net zero sustainability studies to be funded out of our capital plan, JFK air train spotters that are funded and reimbursed by the party that has asked us to provide those while they're doing construction work, tenant-directed improvements to the fuel farm at the airport, and some incremental port dredging that's funded by external funding from the federal government. So that whole pot of dollars is another $80 million, which is in this 2023 proposed budget which is an increase of 49 million versus the 22 estimate. So moving on to capital spending, as I mentioned, all of this net revenues after these operating expenses is what's critical for us in terms of being able to invest into our capital program. So first we're gonna celebrate some of our achievements in 2022 and then talk about what we're gonna do in 23. So we had multiple key milestones this year, and all just great achievements, and particularly important given the fact that we were able to deliver on these despite the pandemic. So we were able to, because of the diversity and strength of our assets, continue these critical construction programs through the pandemic and really deliver them. So it's really something. It's a big deal. How's that? So what does that include? We've talked about the opening of Newark Terminal A. I just want to say the photo that's here may look like it's a rendering. This is a real shot out of an airplane of Terminal A at Newark. And it puts in perspective what that terminal is as compared to those tiny little dots you see around the circle at the other end. So it's just stunning, and I can't wait for everybody to see it. We have the opening of the new terminal, the Delta Terminal C at LaGuardia. That, again, another just breathtaking facility. And the completion of Terminal B at LaGuardia as well, the pre-Versailles winner, and multiple other awards. So also a great accomplishment. Rick's already talked about the steps that have been taken with respect to JFK, so I won't repeat that, but just massive movement in terms of advancing that full redevelopment. We've also completed the entire north side of the George Washington Bridge replacement of the suspender ropes, and we'll be moving to the south side. We've implemented cashless tolling at the George Washington Bridge and the Lincoln Tunnel. That completes the investment in cashless tolling across all of our facilities, which will help in terms of minimizing traffic incidents. The open road tolling also results in cleaner air and many other transportation benefits across the region. Path stations have been upgraded to enable the future 9-car operations on the Newark to World Trade Center line, and path station elevator and escalator upgrades have been completed as a result after following Hurricane Sandy. So much work across all of the facilities, and just want to celebrate those accomplishments from 2022. So if we look forward, we're obviously not done. So we have lots more to come, and what we have here is the snapshot of the 2023 capital spending, which advances our ambitious $37 billion capital program. What we are proposing for 2023 is an increase of $700 million, or 33%, as compared to the 22 estimate, and this again continues to advance that $37 billion program. I'll just pause for a minute before I walk through some of the things that are included in this budget to just note that you can see on this slide there is a difference between what our originally budgeted spending for 22 was versus our estimate, and that's really driven by some delays in the timing of, as Rick talked about, the difficulties of getting the redevelopment projects back on track, so they're a little bit later than we anticipated. And the timing of the spend on our air train replacements as well. And then finally, and this is a good news piece, is we had set aside some money just in case we needed it for incremental state of good repair work, and we luckily it was not required to be spent this year because the state of the facilities was continue to be strong. So what are we going to be spending the proposed $2.9 billion for 23 on? There's more work to be done at Terminal A. So we'll be completing phase 2 and some airside work. That's about $300 million. We'll be starting the major construction at JFK redevelopment. We'll be advancing the Newark Airport Vision Plan and the replacement of the Newark AirTrain. We'll be continuing construction on that Restore the George program, that very large state of good repair project for that critical bridge. We'll be in final planning for the replacement and the new, I should say, not replacement, but the new Midtown Bus Terminal, and a rollout of new and modern path fare system by mid-year of next year, as well as the delivery of the 72 new path rail cars that would be necessary for that expansion of the nine-car service that we've readied the stations for. The last thing I would point out with respect to this spending plan is it is below the 2019 actual, as you can see here, and below where we had expected to be for 2023 spending had it not been for COVID. So we are still in the process of phasing the spending back in a measured way as we have the resources to do that. Final component of the budget is our debt service budget. And you can see here we're proposing an increase of $140 million. You can't see it, but now you can, or 10%. This budget assumes the refinancing on a long-term basis of a short-term 3-year note that we took out in 2020 as it relates to COVID-19. And it also assumes new money issuance to support our capital program of $1 billion. So what are the next steps? We plan to be posting this proposed budget for public comment following this meeting. We're asking the public to provide their comments to us by December 11th. The comments can also be provided at the December 15th board meeting. We'll be providing the board with a summary of comments received and any recommendations related thereto in advance of the December 15th board meeting. And we would be asking the board to adopt a budget for 2023 at the December 15th board meeting. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Libby, I asked you the last time we got briefed, I said, you've handled budgets of this magnitude for many, many years. How would you characterize this particular budget coming on the end of COVID and emerging back to pre-2019?
I think it's a very strong budget. I think it provides the resources that we need to make sure we're delivering on the level of service that we need, but as the activity is coming back, and it also provides for the recovery into the capital spending, and it's all done in a fiscally responsible and balanced way. I think particularly when you look at the accomplishment of this being in that 2.8% compound annual growth vis-a-vis 2019, it just shows the strength of the fiscal discipline of this budget.
Last question before we turn to the executive director. So the additional $718 million in capital, which brings us almost at $2.9 billion, given last few years, which obviously we're down in $2.1 billion, given what we had to do to survive COVID. Will we meet the challenges of spending that 2.89? Are there enough of those priorities that will be serviced by that $2.9 billion?
I believe that, yeah, the priorities will be served by that, and I think these are all advancing into their programs, and everyone's focused on delivering that.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're in November of 2022, and what a November. I think and I had very, very, very busy time at the agency. We've taken note of the opening of Terminal A at Newark Airport on Tuesday of this week. I was delighted to inform the board of the financial close on Terminal 6 at JFK literally today. We haven't mentioned, or we mentioned it only in passing, our announcement this month that we will complete the installation of all electronic tolling at the Lincoln Tunnel, which means that all of our crossings are now all cashless, and December 11th will be the last time there will be a Port Authority cash toll collector in a booth. That is truly the end of an era when you think back to when this agency first built 4 bridges in 10 years. And finally, take note of what our Chief Financial Officer just reported on during November, and as will be posted, subject to the board's approval, our 2023 budget. And I want to take my hat off to the Finance Department for the budget, but more broadly, as I try to say every month, to the employees of the Port Authority. None of these events would have been possible without the extraordinary hard work across the agency in terms of these facilities, these achievements, and the development of this budget, all culminating in this month of November. Finally, what I'd like to also take note of is the fact that the outside world is beginning to take note of what this agency has been doing. This month, the agency has been honored to receive awards for LaGuardia's Terminal B. The new Terminal B received the highly respected Urban Land Institute's 2022 Award for Excellence in Civic Development at their annual awards gala 10 days ago. The award recognizes standout projects in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors across New York State that excel in all facets, from architecture and design to operation. Terminal B also received the Top Project Award at the Design Build Institute of America's annual conference held in Las Vegas, and also received the National Award from that organization for projects exemplifying meaningful diversity, equity, and inclusion projects. Also in the world of, or in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion, at the 28th Competitive Edge Awards Luncheon, the Port Authority was awarded its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Award. And second, the New York Women's Chamber of Commerce selected the Port Authority to receive its Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Champion Award. Both of these awards speak to the tireless effort that the agency has made to advance minority and women-owned business opportunities, particularly as related to our development projects. I do want to include, as I generally do every month, a report on the current facility operating volumes. Since we last met, basically activity volumes have remained steady. Passenger volumes at our airports are close to 2019 levels. As our CFO reported, we expect those to move to 2019 levels and above in the next year, but vehicular traffic at our crossings continued to be roughly at 2019 levels. Path ridership is now approaching 60% of 2019 performance, and as we approach the holiday season, we anticipate significant increases in volumes and have engaged our facilities to prepare for record volumes. To be very specific, during the week of November 7th to the 13th, passenger volumes at the airports were at 99% of 2019 volumes. Vehicular crossings of the bridges and tunnels were at 100% of November 2019 volumes. Path ridership was at 59%. For the month of October, the Port of New York and New Jersey was the busiest seaport in the United States for the third straight month, having surpassed both of the two large California seaports, Long Beach and Los Angeles. And the seaport handled 19% more cargo than pre-COVID October 2019 volumes. With that, Mr. Chairman, I conclude my report.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any comments or questions? All right, we've gone over this budget a number of times throughout the year. I want to thank Libby and your team, Libby, your finance team. A lot of hard work that went into this one in particular. Just extraordinary job. Thank you very much. And we will look forward to this being posted. Are they all here? Eric's here?
Cesar and Mike, so.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This budget will be posted on our website, and we look forward to public comments following today's meeting. All righty, next item. We're now hear from our Director of Aviation Redevelopment, Jim Heitman, who will provide an overview of the Terminal A ribbon cutting that we all went to last Tuesday. Jim?
I'm really excited to be here to give this briefing. As a person with merely 36 years with the agency, this is a truly big deal for me.
That 40,000 get you to stay for 4 more years or no?
I'm tempted. Thank you for that.
Well, you, Jim.
So I stole the same picture as Libby because of exactly what she said. New Terminal A is a cornerstone for the new Newark Liberty Airport. And this picture really captures that with its T-shaped terminal, pedestrian bridge crossing over to the new parking and Conrack facility. You can see how this is the future of Newark Liberty. The existing Terminal A was the first of the original Newark Airport. It was designed late 60s, opened in 73, and similarly, the new Terminal A is the same cornerstone for the new airport. As you approach the new Terminal A for your flight out or to pick up a friend or loved one, the transformation will be obvious from this sheer scale of the frontages. And we took a format here where we're showing the existing terminal and comparing and contrasting against the new terminal. Up above the existing terminal, classic design at its time, very limited in space, 600 linear feet. On the frontage, new Terminal A, 800 feet wide building with 1,000-foot frontage. And I'll go into that a little bit more as we talk about the passenger journey. So on your way out, you first come to the departures frontage. Again, on the left, 600 feet, limited ability to get by the traffic that are dropping people off. The new Terminal A on the right, 800 feet of canopy with solar PV embedded in the canopy, 1,000 feet, multiple lanes, truly transformative experience for the drop-off experience. Once inside the terminal, that's probably the most dramatic impact for anyone who's traveled through the existing Terminal A. Although we keep it clean and we keep it bright, the picture on the left, what you'll notice is you're really strangled by the depth from the counters to the doors. It's 30 to 50 feet. New Terminal A departures hall on the right, the check-in hall, is 127 feet deep. It's nearly 800 feet wide. It allows for all of the different types of travelers. Whether you pre-checked, you can go directly to the security line. You need a kiosk. There are kiosks spread out for any flight any airline carrier that you're flying throughout the whole frontage. There are 6 large check-in pods for full service, and then we have many different accommodations for people with special needs or requiring any kind of travel assistance. Particular attention was paid to the most stressful part of the customer journey, the security screening process. In existing Terminal A, security had to be force-fit into the existing terminal post 9/11. For new Terminal A, the terminal was designed around it, and the queue area is expansive with latest e-gate technology, which allows for touchless processing and direction into the right line. Once you're in the queue, there's a digital screen over top with program to watch while you're waiting, but you shouldn't have to wait too long because we have the latest in screening technology for passengers and luggage. On the left, if you've been in Terminal A, it's probably the most painful portion because we had to jam it in the connector going out to each of the satellites. With the new latest technology, passengers get screened in an open air environment. You can keep your hands at your side. You don't have to lift them up in the air. On the luggage screening side, you can keep your large laptops in the baggage equipment. It automatically takes your baggage and puts it through the machine. Totally transformative experience on the security side.
And Jim, that's
Processing
two
TSA.
of those exist, the slow speed, low tech in Terminal A now versus 14 high speed. So your wait time should be reduced to like literally zero.
Yes, absolutely. And it's actually expandable beyond that. It's future-proof for future expansion as the terminal grows over time. Once we get to the gates, existing gates on the left-hand side in Terminal A, again, your standard old ragged gates. The new gates totally transformed again, technology, touchless boarding. But if you need assistance, full service counters as you would find in airports today. Also have what's shown with the A4 gate designation is a digital pylon. When your gate it's time to board, it starts flashing, it talks about your destination, the flight number, your airline, and then when no one's boarding there, it provides interesting facts about New Jersey. The hold rooms, nearly double in size compared to the existing. The new seating area in the hold rooms has a diverse variety of seating types, loungers, comfortable seating, fun seating, pebble seating, table seating, but each seat has a charging port for the passengers. Particularly proud of the concessions program. In this first phase, we're opening 35 new concession space with about a 50-50 split between retail and food and beverage. And we're very proud to say that nearly half of those vendors are from the local New Jersey region, with 6 particularly carved out for small local businesses to start and operate within the new terminal. Our restrooms are plentiful, large, private, with great designs, each featuring different New Jersey themes: forest, urban, community, and the shore. Baggage claim is my favorite area. It's unlike many other baggage claim areas that are dark in the basement. This one is expansive, open, bright, clarity of wayfinding with digital signs to tell you where you need to go and guide you through your journey as you arrive into New Jersey. And once you pick up your bag, if you need assistance, we have our Welcome Center, the one on the right, with the New Jersey brand, plenty of seating, Welcome Center amenities to guide you to your next destination, concessions. And in that hall, well, on your way out, once you get out of bag claim, going back to the frontage, this is probably the singular biggest transformation in terms of the passenger journey. With the advent of app ride-share vehicle modes, the taxis, friends and family, shuttles and buses. On the left, we had that same 650 linear foot of curbs. In New Terminal A, we have 3 curbs at 1,000 feet each with digital signage showing where your ride app pickup is, where the buses and shuttles are, where your friends and family are, and taxis. It's going to eliminate the chaos and make it a very welcoming environment for the people arriving in New Jersey. Parking is part of the program, as I mentioned. On the left, it shows the short-term parking exposed to the elements, walking into the terminal, finding your way to the right area. Right now, that's replaced with a structured parking. The top 3 floors are public parking. Atop of those 3 floors is a large 6-megawatt, 4.2 kVA solar installation that's scheduled to open in about a month. And throughout the program, from parking all the way through the terminal, really showcased a lot of great local art exhibits. There are 2 hanging sculptures, like the one on the left, on either side, and it goes 50 feet from the lowest floor at arrivals all the way up through the departures hall. The mural on the right is almost 350 feet wide. It spans the entire length of my favorite space in the arrivals hall. And there's art littered throughout. The photo in the center is an art piece that's down the East Concourse, adjacent to one of the concession areas. So I could go on about the different features and amenities to help all the different travelers. And I'd welcome you to come out and take a look. It's really fantastic, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Any questions? We have a video?
I do not have a video.
We have a video.
There we go.
Not to upstage you, Jim, but we have a video.
Thank you.
What do we think of Terminal A? Well, this is what $2.7 billion will get you. Largest investment the Port Authority ever made in New Jersey in our history. Congratulations to the Port Authority. So guess what the Port Authority's been doing? As long as Amelia's been flying back in the 20s and 30s, the Port Authority's been doing it. Bridges, roadways, airports, ports, path, you name it, they've done it. This would not be possible without the amazing effort, first and foremost, the 8,000 Port Authority employees. I'm going to ask the employees to please stand, and you represent the 8,000 strong. Please stand up and take a bow. The 8 Port Authority employees. We have 3 very special commissioners here. Commissioner McCabe, Commissioner Martinotti, Commissioner Richardson, please stand up. You represent the best of the best, the Commissioner of the Port Authority. Round of applause.
Again, the entire Port Authority team, the commissioners and each and every one of the folks who work at the Port Authority, and thank you for the work that you undertake every single day to keep our region and our economy moving forward. So with apologies to Shakespeare, we are here today to bury the old Terminal A, not to praise it. We will save our praise for this new, modern, bright, comfortable, expressive, frankly, extraordinary Terminal A. This building and the experience in this building will literally transform what people think and how they think about New Jersey. It's a game changer. As much as the details in Terminal A represent our proud state's past and future of economic and thought leadership embedded deep within every piece that went into this building, there's also the values of New Jersey, a state which has long welcomed people from across the nation and around the world with open arms.
As Terminal A proves, when we invest in our communities, we all do better.
At the top of the Port Authority's agenda is a commitment to build world-class and best-in-class transportation facilities for New Jersey, for New York, and for the region. Now, I will bet that when the Port Authority originally announced that the agency would tear down the old, appalling, widely reviled Terminal A and build a new world-class terminal, I would bet every person in this room either ignored the announcement, laughed at it, or dismissed it as just more meaningless government rhetoric. I hope that you who are here today will agree that the Port Authority has delivered on its commitment to build a new, truly world-class Terminal A. We're not just talking about creating a world-class airport. As you can see for yourself, we're getting it done. Thank you all for joining us.
So this, ladies and gentlemen, represents the cornerstone for the new vision of Newark Liberty International Airport. Folks, when you construct a facility, it's just not enough. That's a building. Our focus here is creating a world-class experience. There are 6 concessions right at the 50-yard line that represents our commitment to the community. Working with the city of Newark, working with the city of Elizabeth to bring in local businesses. And let me tell you something, when I saw what those businesses had to offer when they rolled up that gate yesterday, it was unbelievable.
And so finally, when people come through Newark Airport, they can feel, taste, smell, and experience Newark, Elizabeth, and the great state of New Jersey. God bless you.
Let me just say that I've been doing this public service thing since the 80s, and I've seen a lot of different levels, local, state, county, federal, port. That Tuesday, that unveiling, that ribbon cutting was one of the most extraordinary days that I've experienced. Watching it all come together, watching just the humanity of it, watching the progression, watching the great grace of the Port Authority, watching that the sheer potential of what this agency has been doing for 100 years on display for the world to see. And it was kind of cool. And I will say that these things just don't happen because you wave a magic wand. Years of planning, both in the Capitol that goes back, thousands and thousands of man and women hours, partners that we worked with Tudor and all the labor unions that were represented there. And most importantly, the Port Authority can-do mentality. And we talked about that. That's just what the Port Authority does. They just do it. And that was on full display. So I feel so moved watching that video. I feel so much that we as the commissioners, very small part over the last 4 years watching this thing come together. When we did that shovel in the ground in October of, I think it was 18, I didn't really envision what the end would be in the face of COVID, in the face of these supply chain issues, and every catastrophe and epidemic that we would not have projected or forecast or thought about in 2018 come to our region. In spite of all that, you saw what was on display last Tuesday. And Rick, I know you get tired of me saying this, but I will tell you, Rick, this agency has never seen a leader like you. You are literally the individual that has made all this happen in the last 5 years. And I said it the other day, and I'll say it again. The reason this happened is because Rick Cotton, our executive director, is the most driven, focused, disciplined, responsible public servant. He is the leader of this thing we do right now. He is really our modern day Mr. Tobin. You are. And it would not have been done. We talk about JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark. Within a short period of time, those 3 airports, the largest in the country, the largest one network that we talk about, will be totally redone, restructured, rebuilt, over $30 billion of investment. And it's all of this coordination and with the employees. Like, we can't say enough about what you have led with, Rick, and to Huntley. I promised Huntley I wouldn't say it was his birthday on Tuesday, and I didn't say it. The governor actually said it on Tuesday. And Huntley, you're amazing. I say you're Mr. Aviation because you are. Even though you're the chief operating officer, whatever that title is you have, you are amazing. And you are so focused, and you believe this stuff. And it was just coming down to crunch time the last few months, and Rick was literally getting in the car and going over there every day, having meetings every day. And Huntley was the calm. Huntley was unflappable. Whatever happened, whatever's incoming. And by the way, and I won't say it, the weekend before was insane. When I get the 6 a.m. phone call from Rick, I go, okay, this is not going well. But it all turned out fine. And Huntley, you and your staff, amazing. Amazing. And Jim, and at some point, Huntley, I want you to bring your team, Jim, your team, Chris, Tom, all of those folks that came in that made this happen, whether it's December or February. I want that team to come in here and take a bow because they deserve it. And it was hard. It was just difficult. And it was something that I didn't really think would all happen, but it all came together. I think that needs to be recognized, the investment and recognition of our Port Authority employees. So to all those individuals who touched this, every department, I don't want to name them all, the purchasing, engineering, legal, all of them, operations, thank you very much. It was just a stunning, stunning display of the can-do attitude of the Port Authority. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
point
Vice
of
Chair.
personal privilege.
Privilege granted.
Thank you. I've now served with 3 executive directors and 3 chairmen. And I think, speaking on behalf of all my colleagues here, the sine qua non for Rick is the gentleman sitting to my left. And so I'd like a round of applause for our chairman. That's the end of my personal privilege. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Chairman.
very much. Any other commissioners want to be heard? Commissioner McCabe.
Amen to all of that, because it doesn't get done without the two of you and the leadership and everybody here. But everything that was said, it truly, when we were at the groundbreaking, I want to come back to something you said, Director, at that groundbreaking in October of 18. It certainly was magnificence personified on Tuesday. And you don't really, you're leaving, you're thinking about it. And one of the elected officials from Jersey that were there, Chairman, you know him well, 2 things. One is he's not usually a loss for words, and compliments are hard to come by. You can throw them around like manhole covers. And when I called him up and I said, sorry, I missed you, he said he was at a loss for words about the totality and the enormity and just what he saw. And he's aware. He's got his finger on the pulse as much as anybody. And I can say the same for myself, being there on October the 8th in 2018. And the term I used when I jumped in for him was the one you used that day. You said, what we are doing here, coming off the Gulf, Bayonne and others, you know, LaGuardia, you're already on that highway of success, was these are legacy projects. So I said to him, I said, these are legacy, it's a legacy project. And he said, that's it. And I think that is something that for everybody who's been a part of this, you know, we're in the cheap seats having the junior mints watching the operation, so to speak. And you guys have done a magnificent job on so many different levels. I think the governor summed it up in all the adjectives that he used because they were spot on. But it is something that will transform New Jersey and this region, as you said earlier, sir, for the next 100 years. So kudos and just job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCabe. Thank you. So, and we talked about the importance about, listen, that Newark Airport is, it's responsible for a creation of 128,000 jobs, to over $30 billion in economic activity, over $10 billion in wages. It is the engine, literally, of this New York, New Jersey region. One of the things that we went to the day after the event, we were having a press conference, which we're going to get into in a second. But I was led down to a special place that I had not seen, Rick, and I talked to you about it, and to Huntley. Tucked away in the right, I saw a couple of fish tanks that were stationed there, and there was some actual fish in them. And I said, what is this? So I got brought in, and they said, look, this is a special place that the Port Authority employees and the folks thought about doing with a wink and a nod from Huntley, and they said, this is going to be the sensory room. I said, well, tell me what that really is. And it's a special place where the Port Authority employees thought about when you have the individuals that need a little quiet time, that have certain challenges or certain moments that they just need it to be quiet. And they need to have a certain awareness, and certain needs need to be attended to. So we're going to have that room, and the vice chair has volunteered, and you can talk about what we can do with that room and how we can really speak to the individuals that would benefit from the sensory room. You could probably articulate it better than I could, Vice Chair.
As the father of a grown autistic daughter, my wife and I have spent decades now trying to help that misunderstood part of our family. And I'm really excited that the Port Authority has gone out of its way to create a safe haven for our family and other families similarly afflicted. Because when you take an autistic child through an airport that is tactily and orally defensive, in other words, sound and touch, they don't know how to respond, and usually the behavior becomes erratic. So if you have a timeout place, in quotes, if you have a sensory room, it will really help the entire family deal with travel through the airport. So I really want to thank the authority for thinking of this.
And Vice Chair, you and your wife are going to volunteer your time and help strengthen it and put some ideas in place that make sense, that'll give value and more comfort to the individuals who seek out that type of room.
Thank you for giving us that opportunity.
Delighted. One other thing that came up about Wednesday, it's like a lot coming in. We were dedicating a road, and that kind of trickled up a few months ago. We were going to dedicate a road that had no particular name to an individual that had some particular New Jersey roots. And what had happened is I think Huntley had charged the staff to find some individual that has some New Jersey presence in aviation that we can dedicate that road that makes sense. And before we get into that, we have a brief video that was played on Good Morning America that probably says it better than I could possibly say. If we could just roll that.
It's hard to believe that 19 years ago today, 19 years ago on this day, I had the privilege of flying a vintage World War II airplane over Moulton Airfield in Tuskegee, Alabama. On this day, 19 years ago, and you know who was there? My dad. He was there on the ground watching, a former Tuskegee airman. And then on Wednesday, yesterday, my siblings, Butch, Sally Ann, Dorothy, we were all at Newark Liberty International Airport, where the new roadway servicing Terminal A is now Colonel Roberts Road. It is a tribute to my late dad, who was also a New Jersey native. Really proud of him. He not only dedicated his life to service as a Tuskegee Airman, he was also an aviation and civic pioneer, passionate about the fight for civil rights and desegregation. He received 18 honors and awards for his 30-plus military career in the United States Air Force, including the Congressional Gold Medal. But when we saw the digital sign saying Colonel Roberts Road, it really meant so much. And my dad grew up in Vauxhall, New Jersey. As a kid, he'd go down to his basement with a sawed-off broomstick handle, thinking it was a throttle, dreaming as a kid of flying. And then some said, you had the audacity to dream. He said, I'm not only going to be a pilot, I'm going to serve this country. And he did in 3 wars. So it was a tribute not only to my dad, but to all Tuskegee.
And boy, that is something to feel good about every time we drive into Newark.
Oh, thank you about that.
I was wondering, are you able to go out of another terminal now? You got to stay on that.
And can I just say, well, first of all, thank you to the Port Authority and everybody. Yeah. They had no idea. They Googled, they wanted a New Jersey native, and then they realized later the connection to me, so it's all about my dad. That new terminal is gorgeous. Yeah. The next time I fly commercial, no, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm going out of
but it was really, but it's great to see you and your family together celebrating your dad. More than deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, George.
Coming up on our GMA Morning.
So, I mean, that's just like, serendipity. So Jim Gill, who deserves a big shout out for that, he goes on, he said at midnight, whatever, he was doing his research, and he just found this individual, Colonel Lawrence Roberts, and he found out the rich history that he served in World War II as a Tuskegee Airman. And when you unbundled it, he had been given the Congressional Medal of Honor, 18 awards, and in 1948, he and a few others sat with President Truman and talked about how the segregation in the armed services had to stop. And he was so instrumental in making that movement a real movement. And when we reached out, Jim reached out, he sent an email to Robert's sister, Dorothy, not knowing any connection, and says, we'd like to be able to think about dedicating a roadway to your dad. So Dorothy, who was there, and all four siblings were there yesterday, Sally Ann, Lawrence, Robin, Dorothy said to Jim, okay, I got the message, you want to dedicate it. What's it going to cost my family? Because typically you have these things, there's a solicitation, and they were somewhat cynical. And I went up to Dorothy, I said, what's with this? He goes, well, my dad was born in Jersey, so I just... So they got together, and I will say it was so meaningful to them. And I think the story has to be told. So I've asked Huntley, and I've asked, with the permission of the executive director, after this dedication, which is so meaningful, that we have to find a place in Terminal A, Huntley. We have to find a place that serves as a monument to Lieutenant Lawrence Roberts and all the 992 individuals who served as Tuskegee Airmen, and tell that story, tell his personal story, and tell the story of what they meant to this country. Tell the story. It deserves to be told. Courageous, brave, raw, facing the prejudice they faced, what they've overcome, helping this country win a war when it was not always easy for them to go to a restaurant or a hotel, as the siblings told me yesterday, that they would pack their bags, and they said the mom would put in lunches for a week as Lawrence was driving down from New Jersey down to Mississippi because he couldn't stop at a restaurant because they wouldn't allow him. That story needs to be told and saluted and honored in what his dedication was, and those like him back in the 40s and 50s. So it's a magnificent story, and I want that to be part of our legacy at Terminal A.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
I think that was spectacular. So plus one, what you said about the naming of the road. And I think it's a spectacular idea to have additional information and history about the Tuskegee Airmen. The New Jersey, New York metropolitan area actually has quite a few persons who were Tuskegee Airmen. Most of them passed away, but many New Yorkers will know Percy Sutton, the former president of the borough of Manhattan, founder of the Apollo, lawyer to Malcolm X, one of the greatest civil rights leaders of our time. He too was a Tuskegee Airman. So this region, both states are rich with that history, and I think it would be just extraordinary to have the display that you mentioned.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Eve. Anybody else? Pretty cool day today. At this point, we're going to hear from our executive director with your report. Or are we done? Fine. That was easy. At this point, we're going to ask an opportunity for the members of the public to comment on any public authority matter. This public comment period, which will be limited to 30 minutes in total, provides an opportunity for the members of the public to speak directly to the board, but does not. We don't expect to give and take in terms of the dialogue. If the public wishes to have a specific issue addressed, please let us know. Please let the staff know, and we'll direct you to the appropriate department. Jim, do we have a list?
You should have it at your place. Thanks, Chairman.
Thanks, Jim. First speaker, Murray Bowden. Murray? Thank you, Gary.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Murray.
Hey, it's Bella, Kevin. By the way, I know the airport 48 years ago, my family and I were flying out there, go out west. So it's changed a little bit. What happens when 100,000 people make a mistake and it impacts the public safety? Interesting question. You all know what this is. This is a receptacle. It's where you plug your stuff in. You notice it's got two things there and a little round hole on the bottom. In this building right over there, this is put in upside down with a hole on the top. Now, all of the equipment you get these days is kind of flat to the wall, doesn't stick out anymore, and it goes down. So this becomes a safety issue. What are you going to do with 100,000, 200,000 electricians who have put them in upside down all these years? Nobody's going to admit that we've done it wrong for 30 years. How does that affect us? We've spoken, you and I, about correcting the road lines. 100,000, 200,000 traffic engineers have been doing it wrong for 30, 40 years. It's a safety issue. Doesn't give the driver the best information possible. There are hundreds of them. I've sent you pictures. We've talked about it before. Nobody has the guts to confront the industry of traffic engineers, hundreds of thousands of them, been doing it wrong for 30, 40 years. It's a safety issue. Global warming, what you've done here is reduce global warming. Every accident requires firemen, policemen. The painting is extra. The whole design is idiotic. Buses don't go as fast as they should. We've spoken. You've committed to helping solve this problem, but never got done. I don't know why somebody hasn't got the fortitude to say, hey guys, you've been doing it wrong for 40 years. It's embarrassing. But global warming has the same problem. They're so used to using gasoline, they can't stop. It's my grandchildren I'll be affected and your grandchildren. I'm out of here. I'm 89 years old and I'm failing. I wear this brace here to keep myself standing up a little straighter. Not easy getting old. It's your job. Please do something about it.
Thank you, Murray. Thank you. Jason Anthony?
Good afternoon, Board. Jason Anthony for the worker from the Amazon Labor Union. One quick fact about the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. It is not owned by the Port Authority. It is owned by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, because your chief financial officer, when she gave the budget report, she gave the incorrect information. And for the record, congestion pricing is coming. And I don't see that New Jersey Transit Corporation and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority are not communicating with each other. Why is that? Even though that we are in the same region, but we are in a dysfunctional region. Why? Even though that this agency is run by two governors, but both states have people that work in both states. I'm a New Yorker, but I do business in both states. But congestion pricing is coming. That New York could charge commuters that run or do business south of 60th Street anything from $9 to $23. Your tolls are way excessive. The air train is going up to $8.25. I don't see no transit authority in the whole nation that charges us commuters to access our airports. Even Washington Metro doesn't charge not even a penny extra to access the airports, even to Dulles or to Regent or to Regan. Think about it. You guys are charging us extra to access our airports. I prefer taking a lift from my house in Brooklyn to access JFK. Think about it. you guys are causing more traffic in LaGuardia Airport instead of rebuilding Stewart Airport in Westchester County. So think about it. You guys are benefiting New Jersey more than New York. I'll see you guys next month.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Jim, I want to note that there are no other individuals who signed up, number one, and that there's no pre-recorded videos or other written statements.
That is correct.
Great, thank you. That concludes our public portion. We're now going to proceed to the voting of the items. Each of the respective committee chairs will provide a brief report prior to the matter being considered. We're first going to hear from our vice chair to provide his report on behalf of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I will now report on 3 items. The first item authorizes variances to the New York City Building Code for the Ronald O. Perlman Performing Arts Center at the World Trade Center, which are necessary to accommodate the flexible seating and stage design for the operation of the Performing Arts Theater. The World Trade Center Performing Arts Center, lessee, has agreed to implement certain mitigations that will maintain an equivalent level of safety. The New York City Fire Department and New York City Department of Buildings have concurred with the proposed variances on the basis of the mitigations. Additionally, the lease would be amended to allow the lessee to obtain domestic water from the Port Authority, for which the lessee would be billed based on actual water usage. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the corporate secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
Commissioner Cohen is recused.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you. I now request the corporate secretary to call the roll for voting on the item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinotti?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
The votes are in order. This item is approved. The second item would authorize a $32.4 million project for the rehabilitation of asphalt and concrete pavement at the Terminal B aircraft parking areas at the Newark Liberty International Airport. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the corporate secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I now request the corporate secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinotti?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved. The third and last item reauthorizes a project to complete the rehabilitation of 2 berths at the Port Jersey Port Authority Marine Terminal's dry dock facility at a total project cost of $47.2 million. This reflects an increase of $17.2 million, which is primarily driven by unanticipated site conditions. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the corporate secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you. I now ask the corporate secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve? Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinotti? Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved, and I turn the microphone back to our chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I now turn to our Commissioner Cohen to provide his report on the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chair of the Committee on Finance, I am recommending that the Board consider one item. This item authorizes a special obligation institutional loan program, which would augment the existing commercial paper program. The proposed program would be utilized to fund capital expenditures on a short or medium-term basis up to the amount of $1.25 billion, provided that the aggregate amount of the outstanding of both the commercial paper program and the proposed program shall not exceed $1.25 billion. This item would also authorize the Port Authority to enter into banking financing agreements to effectuate the program. Prior to making a motion on this item, will the Corporate Secretary note any Commissioner recusals?
There are no recusals.
Thank you very much. Do Commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Can I have a second? Thank you very much. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on this item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Horwitz?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinotti?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The votes are in order. The item is approved, and I now turn the meeting back to the Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cohen. There being no further business, I move to adjourn. We have a second.
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's now adjourned. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and safe Thanksgiving next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.